Hello, hello, hello. Hey, hey, hey. I hope you're all having a great day. I am Hannah, aka, where is it? There we go. The Paperback Bruncher, and I am the host of the Moody Readers Book Club. So, we were formerly Brunch Babes Reads, a book club that started in person in, I think, 2018. So, we've been around for a minute, and we've evolved to be this beautiful online book club, just constantly changing, evolving, growing. Now we're all virtual. And now we do a new mood read every single month. So, hence the Moody Readers. We try all sorts of different genres. We meet all sorts of different authors, and we're always down to try new things, to meet new friends, and just to fall in love with new books. So, today is an interesting experience, let's say, because it's the first time that we're having an author back. So, I was joking, it's our first second. So, back in the day, we read a collection of poetry called Monarch by author Sydney Blondell. And I gave you that little bit of context here because you can see this is our old school book club sticker. So, way back when we were a different name, we read this collection of poetry by Sydney and we just fell in love with it. I know for me personally, this was one of the works that I just really connected with while I was in a bit of a emotionally fragile space, I guess I would say, with the pandemic and just like not knowing who you are, what's going on in the world. This was something that I just really connected with and that led me to Sydney and helped me fall in love with her writing. So for April, for Poetry Month, we're actually having Sydney back to discuss poetry yet again with her newest collection of poetry called Still Have Me. So we've got Sydney with us here today, waiting in the wings. But I wanted to share a little bit about her. I feel like with most authors and most humans in general, we don't really get a chance to have someone else kind of brag about us for a minute. So it's kind of cool to have someone else read your intro and to hype you up for a second. So I'm going to do that. And then we are going to give a big virtual whoop in the comments to welcome Sydney. So Sydney is the one and only author of captivating works like The Stars in My Heart, Heaven Sent You Back to Me, and Monarch. You will see I have them lovely on display back here, and they're all linked down below so you can shop as well. Sydney is a recent college grad with a double major in both English and professional writing from Bridgewater College. Makes sense. When Sydney's not writing, you can catch Sydney chilling with adorable pups Jeter and Frankie, or indulging in some Grey's Anatomy binge watching sessions on Netflix. So grab your favorite poetry collection, buckle up for a fun and silly live stream, and we will talk more about Sydney's latest masterpiece, Still Have Me, discuss mood reading, discuss poetry. We'll be playing games and having a great time. All right, welcome, Sydney. Woo! Crowd goes wild.
Well, thank you for having me, Hannah.
Of course. I'm so excited. I feel like it's so odd to think that we haven't even met in person
I
because we've
know.
known each other for years now. And like we DM, we chat. It's just like been so many years and both of us have gone through like a lot. It's like, wait, how do we actually like I don't even know how tall you are. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's so weird, but it's so cool. I love
Yeah,
it.
I am so grateful for the Bookstagram community. I've met so many awesome people. I've only been able to meet one Bookstagram friend in person, but I feel like I know so many people personally, like even though I've never met them like in real life.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know, it's interesting because I feel like I guess it's the internet. You can curate your experience accordingly, but like how else would you find people that you have so much in common with and so many interests like your own? So I don't know. I'm just like grateful for the internet. It's not all bad out there.
Yeah.
I do have a little housekeeping note that if you want to talk about anything that is spoilery in your books, just let me know first if you want. If not, we'll just avoid it. But I have a little sign and I will hold it up while
Okay.
you think about your spoiler and then I'll put it away
Yeah.
and then that's when you're done. So
Okay.
then if people are watching and they obviously don't want the spoiler when I'm holding this, you can just press mute and
Okay.
it's super chill. And then when you see the sign go away, you're like, oh, they're done. So my little system, it's super dorky. It makes me feel like I'm like Vanna White or something. I don't know, but I love it.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to kind of sprinkle in games with our questions. And as with all things that I do, none of this is super rigid. Like, I love to have a plan because I'm a planner and then we know what to expect. But, like, if you want to go off the rails on something or you start thinking of something, like, go where your heart leads you. I am just here to facilitate. So, we're going to have fun. I feel like so many times with authors and book clubs, it's so structured and like
Yeah.
interviews, it's like, well, how was this part of your process? Like, that exists in other spaces of the internet. That's not what this is for. This is more so like hanging out with your friends, you know?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the non-structure of book clubs and the book clubs that I get myself into, whether I'm a reader or someone is reading my book. They tend to be on that side of things because I don't know, sometimes when there's like such rigid rules, it's not fun anymore. Like
Mm-hmm.
one book club I reached out to and they were like, "Oh no, sorry, we only read classics in our book club." I was like, okay, that's fine. But I was like, it kind of turned me off from it because that like it was like turn away completely.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, yeah, there's going to be different spaces for everything. And I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's because I'm older than a lot of people on bookish spaces being 30, but I feel like if you're not kind of like evolving and growing and trying new things, like what are you doing? But
yeah,
I guess classes can be good too, I guess.
yeah. They're not necessarily for me, but you do you.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. So one thing you may or may not have noticed is with Still Have Me this month, as we were reading along, I actually didn't assign it a mood yet. And I did it on purpose because it felt strangely like inauthentic for me to assign it a mood
Mhm.
because of the type of work that it is. I feel like, it's so personal for you and there's so many different emotions. And I felt like maybe this is something that becomes more of the discussion at the end. So I kind of want to start there and kind of start talking about with this particular book, which is the one that we read, of course, Still Have Me. What was kind of maybe some of the themes that you were feeling as you were writing, or what were some of the moods, the buzzword of the day?
So before coming on here, I'm one of the few authors that I know of that likes to check their ratings on
Hmm,
their books. I kind of
you're strong.
I thankfully I haven't had too many mean situations yet, but um, I was on Storygraph and I saw that those who have read it this month or whenever have deemed it emotional and dark, and I would tend to agree with those decisions.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, and that's one thing I like about Storygraph so much too. For those of you who haven't tried it yet, but if you are like a true mood reader in the sense of like you read things based on the emotion attached, where either maybe you want to read something that matches the emotion that you're currently in, or you're like, I want to be feeling more of this emotion instead.
Mhm.
It's really helpful for that. So I know sometimes I'm like, oh, I could really just like use getting up in my feels, and I'll use it in that way. So it's cool to see the like because we just added it like at the beginning of the month. So this is all like super fresh on Storygraph. It was already on Goodreads, but it's cool to see that these are coming through. There's also a buddy read on there for anyone interested. If you're joining later, it should still be up there. Or DM me, I can send you the link. But if you want to join the buddy read, it's super cool because you can mark like, oh, I'm on page 5, and you'll only see people's comments who have read up to page 5. So it like hides them for you.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
right? So we're testing it out. I love Storygraph. Of course, they're still kind of in their baby phase because it's like a team of like 1 or 2, I believe. So they've got a lot of work to do, but they're doing great.
Yeah, I started using Storygraph last year. I still use Goodreads as well. But I yesterday I spent I think like an hour and a half going through and importing the books from years past into Storygraph because I really wanted to find out who my most read author was, and so I wanted to figure
Wait,
that
who
out.
is it? Now I want to know. I was like, sidetrack who?
So currently it is Alice Osman. I've read all but one of their books, so hopefully I will read Radio Silence in June, and then I'll be all caught up on all of their books.
That's cool. That's fun to see. I love the stats part of it so much.
Yeah, that's my favorite part.
Okay. Also, quick reminder: at the end of the stream, we're gonna do some audience Q&A. I'll save some time if you guys have questions. If you don't, I will just keep bothering Sydney for the entire hour. But if you do, put them in the chat, and I'll save them for later, and we'll pop them up screen like this. Also, hello, Melinda. I agree. This is how I feel about book clubs. Get out of your comfort zones, try things you wouldn't have read on your own, and then it's also wild to hear when someone reads the same book as you and has an entirely different experience. So cool.
Yes.
Also, hello. Didn't know that about the buddy. Well, now you do. I was wondering if there was it sounds weird to call it a favorite, and for lack of a better word, because I'm not a writer, I was like, maybe I need a thesaurus. But do you have kind of maybe a favorite poem of the moment, or a poem out of this that you're just really proud of, or that's really stuck with you, or maybe it's something you're really resonating with right now, and is there something you can share a little bit about one of them?
So I think one of my favorites that I wrote was one of the longer ones. I'm famous for writing very short poems, but my favorite of the collection would have to be the Dear Little Me one. I'd have to go through and find what page it's on, but that one definitely would have to be my favorite of the collection. I wrote it. Music really played a big part in this collection, and there's a Demi Lovato song, Melon Cake, and in the song she says, "Dear little me, I'm sorry it took so long, but baby, you're free." And I just like the reference of going back to your childhood, and when you have a rough childhood or whatever, adults in your life not taking care of you the way that they should have, just kind of going back to that person, looking at young pictures of yourself and really saying, I'm sorry that there weren't people there. Obviously there are people that I can count on, but as a whole, a lot of people let me down. And I just look at me as a kid, and I can't fathom as an adult letting a child down so profoundly, certain people in my life did. So I just kind of wanted to write that little piece for the collection.
It's a huge reflection of who you are and your story, unfortunately. So a lot of people can relate, but also that's some of the beauty of it as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
I also secretly had a little note in my head being like, if we don't go on this live stream and Sydney does not bring up Demi Lovato at least once, there's something wrong.
Yes. Well, I don't. You'd have to be a Lovatic to really figure this out. But the title of the collection itself is a Demi song. It is my favorite Demi song. I have listened to it so many times since a lot of things in my personal life have taken place since 2021. So yeah, I contribute a lot of my muse and things like that to a lot of Demi's music.
Julia Fox to Uncut Gems is Demi Lovato as to Sydney Blondell. Your muse. Do you mind if I read the last portion here? Is that okay with you? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the Dear Little Me poem that we've been talking about, which is on page 125. Thank you, SJ. Dear little me, I'm sorry for everything you've been through, but you are a full-blown warrior now. and you will always have my love. I just like, like my palms sweat like every single time I'm reading your poetry. I'm like, I don't know what to do with all of these emotions. It's so great. So good. And if I don't cry at least once on the stream, then something is wrong with me. Okay, so obviously you write more than poetry, but we are mostly reflecting on poetry. So you can kind of talk a little bit about both, but how do you kind of navigate what parts of your life to share? Because obviously poetry is known for being very vulnerable. And at what point are you like, just rip the band-aid, let it fly, I'm doing it all, or you're like, oh, that's gonna be just for me. Like maybe you have poetry that you don't publish that you're like, that was too much. Like, do you have a line, or do you just kind of feel it out situationally? How do you go about what you publish and like based on your emotion and personal feelings attached?
So with Delicate Chaos and Monarch, I put in every poem that I wrote for those collections. With Still Have Me, I trashed about 70 poems.
Oh wow.
Some of them were repetitive, so there was no need to put them in. But some were just a little too I don't mind hurting people's feelings when calling people out in my poetry. That's a lot of what I do, but some are about people that are currently in my life, and I didn't want to necessarily push it so far that I would end up hurting myself by putting it out. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple that I'm truly proud of, and if circumstances were different, they definitely would be in the collection. And I share them with like close friends, and actually one of my best friends that I met through our first go around of with your book club, I send her a lot of my poetry because she is like my biggest poetry fan. She likes all of my books, or at least she says she does. But I send her some of the like scrapped things so that it's still out there for people to see, but not the whole
Mm-hmm.
reading community.
Mm-hmm. I know sometimes you share a bit about what it's like having a chronic illness and about writing with that. Um, can you share a little bit maybe about for some of those who are just like finding you and what it's like having that experience? I feel like that's something very unique that we don't often get to hear about. And I know that it adds its own set of struggles to your writing as well.
Yeah, I don't always incorporate my chronic illnesses into poetry. I kind of leave that more towards my fiction side of things. Um, but one of the biggest ways that it affects me currently is I don't have motivation to write. After I get off of my regular job, I just don't want to write. And so my current manuscript is kind of just sitting there right now. I love the story, but I just can't force myself to sit here and type.
Mm-hmm. That's gotta be extremely frustrating because you're attached to it. You obviously feel strongly about it. You want to write it, but you just can't.
Yeah.
At least not right now.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing about that. I appreciate you as always. Okay, so to add some lightheartedness, we gotta, have our moods be all over the place today. I am gonna grab a pen and we are gonna play some Mad Libs. We are gonna write a little poem that is gonna be absolutely dog shit, and it'll be silly and fun. All right, one second. All right. So I will give you prompts and you will tell me what to fill in. And if anyone in the chat has suggestions as well, maybe we'll take a couple of yours. So first up, we are going to need a noun.
Dog.
Okay, dog. And chat will need more nouns, so feel free to drop some nouns in there. Noun.
And just to respond to Melinda, Hannah was glitching for me as well.
Oh no. Hopefully it's working out.
Yes, now you are all clear.
All right. We do our best, but I do not have the best internet, unfortunately. So
yes, it's raining here, so that always plays a part in my Wi-Fi.
All right. What is an adjective?
I can do silly.
Okay. All right. Let's do 2 more nouns.
Book and there we go, tree.
And I filled in SJ's other adjective suggestion in another spot here too. I also should have definitely made this shorter, so that's a note for the future. All right, Melinda, I will add your pizza in another spot. We'll definitely need that. Noun. Let's see. All right, I need 2 places.
Let's do Baltimore and Virginia.
Okay. All right, chat, give me a noun and a person. Noun, person. Sydney, give me an adjective and a verb.
Walk. And you said adjective. Colorful.
Nice. Okay, almost done. Let's see. All right, this is so hard to do without it being like a workbook. I'm like making sure I didn't miss any. Okay, let's rapid fire. Let's see. All right, a couple more nouns. Just throw them at me.
Oh. Keyboard.
Okay.
Tape. How many do you need?
2 more.
Deodorant. I'm like looking around my room.
Oh, they're funny.
One more. Melinda said pizza.
Yep, got that one. We can add it in here twice because it's great. See what happens. Okay. I only half remember sort of this poem, so I will help you guys out a little bit and just throw some wild cards in here too. So let's say for another adjective, let's do, of course, moody, because I feel like we have to have that in there somewhere. Another adjective would be emotional for our theme of our book here. Verb, reading.
Yeah.
Another verb, napping. And I'm almost done. 2 more verbs. Let's see. Streaming.
Yeah.
And
running.
All right. Let's see if I can accomplish reading you this beautiful poem. We also apparently are doing a poetry slam of Mad Libs. Okay. In This does not even make sense. Here we go. Okay. In the land of dog, where silly books grow, a tree dances with a radiant glow. Through Baltimore and Virginia, our story takes flight with bright pizza that gleam in the light. In the midst of keyboard, we find our muse. Actually, that's really fitting for your muse. That's cute. As Sydney, I added your name, whispers secrets not to confuse. With colorful wings, we soar through the skies and walk through the clouds where adventure lies. In the emotional forest where tape, sorry, I was like, wait, what? Where tape, wow, I lost my spot. Where, okay, in the emotional forest where tape gently weep, we are reading hand in hand our promises to keep. Though through deodorant and pizza, our story unfolds as moody memories turn into gold. So let's nap together with hearts full of poetry and stream our dreams until the day is done. For in this pizza, where our imaginations roam free, we'll be running our own ending, just you and me. Not the worst, could be
Not
better.
the worst. It deserves some snaps.
Yeah. I did like the keyboard little part. That was cute.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about some of your other work. So, of course, like I mentioned here, we talked a bit about poetry in your poetry journey, but for those who are just finding you, let's share a little bit about these lovely books back here and kind of what else you write.
Yes. So currently, I publish poetry and young adult fiction. I have a trilogy out, The Stars in My Heart, The Stars in My Mind, and The Stars in My Bones. And it follows three teenage girls who become friends through a chronic illness support group, Sloan, Clem, and Harlow. And in The Stars in My Heart and The Stars in My Mind, it has own voice, POTS representation, and bipolar representation. And then in the third book, it has A-Wings sarcoma representation. And it is filled with all kinds of pop culture references. First book is full of Demi references. And I really enjoyed writing the trilogy. It pushed me creatively. I spent years in the minds of these three girls, so it was kind of hard to give them up when it was all done, but I'm excited to move on to another series. So
It's always interesting to hear that from the perspective of an author because I feel like when the character development is super strong as a reader, I feel like sad to let them go at the end of the book. So I'm like, I can only imagine how it feels for the author, especially like those who are super like imaginative, because I feel like, I don't know, you really just like really get into their minds. Maybe there's for some who are just less attached, but I feel like I would get extremely attached.
I definitely got attached to these three women or young women. I am definitely the type of writer that needs to know who the main characters are as I'm writing them, because if I don't feel like I know the person, then I don't have an attachment to it, and then I don't think that my writing would be good then. So I spent a lot of time just kind of like getting to know each character, and then I kind of got to know each one more as I wrote their perspectives in the books. Um, I have a very soft spot for Harlow. She was my favorite. I know pretty much all of my readers love Clem the most, but Harlow is my favorite.
They're like, don't pick a favorite child, but we'll pick a favorite character. Yes, we will. Okay, well, you knew I was gonna do it. So your Demi is my Taylor. Did you listen to Tortured Poets? I mean, in Poetry Month. How
I
what are your
have.
favorites? Any
Um, I
standouts?
have.
Any feels?
And my character Clem can be credited to my newfound love for Taylor. She will not edge out Demi ever, but I do enjoy Taylor. Midnights is my favorite album. Um, I didn't enjoy Tortured Poets Department as much as Midnights and some of the other um, albums, but I did really enjoy So High School on the album. Um, that song, I think I listened to at least twice throughout my workday. I just really like the lyrics in that one.
Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of friends because obviously I posted a lot about Taylor and they're like, what, you haven't even posted your thoughts. And I was like, because I don't have them yet. Like my brain is still like, it's 31 songs, everyone. Like,
Yeah.
please give me time. But I was also traveling when it came out. And so I feel like I haven't really had time to sit with it. I feel like I've only really listened through the entirety a couple times now. But I mean, I'll be the first to say, like, I love pop Princess Taylor. I am a pop girly. Like, essentially with most music, I like to listen to it to uplift my mood because when it's sad, it actually does make me sadder. Like I get very influenced by music,
Mhm.
just like books. So a lot of times, like I don't want to like bring my energy down for a day, you know, understandably so. So this is really well written and it's really good. And as I'm listening more and more, there's things like I'm picking up on that I'm like, whoa, like she twisted the dagger on that one, or like that's such a good line. So I'm excited to sit with it more. But it's probably not in like my top couple favorite albums. I'm definitely like I love Reputation, I love Folklore, and 1989. Like those are the ones I go hard for. But I'm excited to sit with it more and I don't know, just
Yeah.
give it its
I
time.
mean, the most, if you follow me on Instagram, you know this, but I am enough of a fan of her now to name my next book one of her song titles. So
Oh. There, I'm not even gonna bother trying to do the actual line because I'm terrible with lyrics and I haven't like memorized it. But there's one lyric in particular from this album where she says something about like I had given you like all of my best years, like you stole away my youth. And every time I hear that, I just get like full body chills. And I'm like, oh, so good. I wish I could write. I can appreciate it. Um, so obviously both Eve and I love pop culture. We keep talking about it in different ways. But one thing that like I feel like it's one of those situations of like once you get a new car or you're like someone you know gets that car, you start seeing it everywhere just because
mhm.
like you know what to look for. People I feel like have a weird relationship with poetry. Like they think that like you need to be all studious and you need to go sit in like a library to read it and like you need to have tissues. I don't know, like there's all these like weird misconceptions. Like you can do that and all of that is great too. But I feel like this album in particular for Taylor will be kind of making poetry more accessible to people and just being like, oh, music is poetry. And that's literally what lyrics are. Think about it. And I'm intrigued to think about like what other poetic moments you see in pop culture or like when you think of TV shows or movies or maybe other collections, like where else do you see poetry in the world? Big question.
um, Music wise, I think that Halsey does a really good job at um, incorporating poetry, and it makes sense that she has a poetry collection out. It's not one of those like, oh, a celebrity wrote a poetry collection and it's not very well written. Like it's she's an actual poet and does it nicely. Um, I'm trying to think. I think the a lot of like early 2000s movies are kind of fall into that um, line. Mamma Mia, in particular, I think is very poetic and influential. Um, yeah, it's hard because I don't know that I consume poetry in the way that like a lot of poets do, and that I don't really even consider myself to be a poet.
Mm.
Um, I, I some people will use that term to refer to me, and it's like jarring almost because I just don't consider myself to be that. But
Is it, I mean, feel free to veto this question, but do you think that you are not super comfortable with that title because it's only a fraction of who you are, or do you think it's more so it just feels so like heavy, like you just feel like, oh, you're not at, I don't know, like is it like the pressure of that title, or what is it?
I think it could be the pressure. In college, there were some professors that like had these very specific views of what a poet is, and I think that was so ingrained in me that I'm like, well, I don't match that definition. And it's not even like I idolized these professors or anything like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're not my favorite people in the world, but I think that kind of got ingrained there because I started my writing journey in college. So I think that's probably
Okay, well, let's unpack this. um, so think about the fact like there's a couple authors who come to mind, and I'm gonna name names just for the sake of like this conversation. So a lot of people will say, in particular, Stephanie Meyer,
mhm,
Colleen Hoover,
mhm,
and what's her name, Tracy Wolff, and also Anna Todd are all like really extremely popular authors, but like people don't say they're good at writing. That is something I
right,
hear often online.
right,
Several of those I haven't read. This is not my personal opinion. This is
right,
internet discourse. But with them, they're still considered authors. No
yeah,
one's going to argue that because of the scale of their popularity and just like, oh, you're an author, that's a book, it's published. I
yeah,
feel like maybe it's just because poetry isn't like produced at the same scale, it's not as popular. But at the same point, like, I'm not saying you are that level whatsoever in any sort of way, but I'm just saying, like, even with poetry, I think we forget like there's going to be good and bad poets. Like you were mentioning some of the celebrity poets,
right.
still a poet, you know,
Yeah.
like you're
I just,
reporting paper.
I don't know. I think that what it kind of boils down for me is I have to be able to really resonate with something to be able to consider it. And I compare to others. And I would say that one of my very close friends, she has a poetry collection out and she is a poet. She has beautiful lyrically, like it's poem, it's poetry. And maybe it maybe it's because I don't rhyme. Maybe it's because it's too close to home and I'm just writing down whatever thought is coming to my mind about whatever situation. I don't know. I just don't think that I would ever put that label on myself. I'm fine with people calling me that. It's fine. I just don't think that I would, if I were at an event and was introducing myself, I'd say I'm an author. I
Yeah,
wouldn't say I'm a poet.
that's fair. That's valid. I mean, you write other works as well. It's not the your only focus as well. So I think that's fair. But I think you're worthy of the title. Okay, I wanted to do kind of a silly, just get to know you type thing because I feel like once again with like author interviews and discussions, so much of it is serious, and I just like to kind of know a bit about the person behind the words, because I feel like that's what even attaches me further to their writing. So this is just a silly game of this or that. So you pick one or the other.
Okay.
Blank verse or free verse?
Free.
All right. Rhyme scheme or free rhyme?
My poetry, no rhyme, but I like to consume rhyme.
All right. Sonnet or haiku?
Sonnet.
Mood reader or planned TBR?
I'm a planned TBR girly.
I knew it. I knew it. You're gonna. I try so badly because I obviously love planning, and like I can kind of stick to it, but like when I do, something about it like crushes my soul a little. Like I don't know. I need that creativity.
I feel like I'm a little bit of both because I won't set it in, okay, I'm going to read this book first and then this one and then this one, whatever, throughout the month. I will add different genres so that whatever I'm feeling, I'll read it.
Yeah.
But I planned on reading it this month.
Okay, that makes sense. I kind of do that sometimes too, like where I'll be like, this is my mood read stack. So it's like I have to like trick my brain where I'm like, this is what I should be reading this month that I'm interested in or like that's coming out, but also I do want to read it anyways.
Yeah. Like last month or like towards the end of last month, I was reading so many romances and I was like, I need to break this up. So I went to thrillers that I had on my April TBR.
I do the same thing. I always say like at a certain point of like so many people falling in love in a row, like I just need someone to kill each other. Like I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
I love romance. I read probably like 70 to 80% romance, but like sometimes it's too much in a row.
Yeah.
Pen or keyboard for your writing?
Keyboard.
And is this this or that to this or that? Is it computer keyboard or phone keyboard?
When I'm writing poetry, I usually write the first draft on my phone, but that's because it's at 2 a.m. when I can't sleep.
It's like the notes app kind of shit,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yep. But for like regular writing, I've got the fancy keyboard, and I hooked it up to my work computer now, so now all my coworkers are jealous.
It's super cool. It looks nice and clicky.
Yes, it is.
Are you more, well, this kind of discovered it, but are you more of a morning muse or midnight inspiration?
Poetry, midnight. Fiction during the day.
Okay. Coffee shop writing or nature writing?
This is hard because I don't really write anywhere but my room. So,
like bedroom.
Yes. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably say coffee shop.
Okay. I was like, you do have to pick one. That is literally the game. Okay, so are you more of epiphany or a slow burning idea?
Epiphany.
I like have answers of what I think you'll pick in my brain, so it's fun to see if I'm right. Classic poetry or modern poetry?
Modern. I'm not a classic girly at all.
We've all heard how you feel about classics today, Sydney. Let's see.
It's the college trauma.
Paperback or ebook?
Ebook.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Writing alone or collaboratively?
Alone.
Sunrise, sunset?
Sunrise.
Okay. Snacking, sweet or salty?
Salty.
Okay. Book club virtual or book club in person?
Virtual.
All right, 3 more. Fictional characters or real life inspiration?
Real life inspiration.
All right. And then let's do one more actually. Rainy day or sunshine vibes?
Sunshine.
All right. That's that. That's the game. Also, this was a very sweet comment.
Thank you, Melinda.
All right. So I always like to hear about authors and kind of, I guess, like their their memories of the journey. Like a lot of times people are like, oh, like this is what you've accomplished, this or that. I want to know like about the emotions behind it. Do you have a particular moment during your author journey that really sticks out to you where you're like, oh, like I am an author? Like I kind of like call that like, oh shit, like I did it kind of a moment. Do you have one of those or a moment where you're like, oh, this kind of made it all worth it? Or, something that just sticks out in your brain like that?
I would say after The Stars in My Heart came out, that was probably one of my proudest moments. I had a lot of people with pots messaging me, thanking me for the book, the representation of pots. Up until just a couple years ago, there were no books with pots representation in it. So I think that getting feedback from my trilogy readers in particular, that I represented illnesses in a accurate or respectful manner, that's always my concern. I never want to offend, and want to make sure that everything is portrayed as accurately or as even though it's own voice, I just want to make sure that it's not just me that can relate, even though I'm using like my symptoms and stuff like that. It was definitely like an oh wow moment, getting a lot of DMs and follows and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's got to be like a heavy crown to wear, like not only obviously in your personal life and actually firsthand dealing with all these symptoms, but now you're writing about them, and then you're having to make sure that like you're saying it relates to other people. So there's obviously like components of research and talking to other people, and then I don't know. I feel like I would get extremely stressed by that. Like that sounds very stressful, and just knowing that like it is important and it's impactful and it's something that you were already looking for in the world. It like people always say, like if you don't find it in the world, write it. Like you
Right.
literally did that. So
I
I feel like that's intense.
Yeah, I definitely felt the stress when it came to Harlow's character, because she does suffer from addiction, and I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't misrepresented. Um, and so I did hours and hours of research on um, what specific drugs did to your pupils, what alcohol, like all that type of stuff that I'm not well versed in, but felt the need to have in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely did a lot of research there.
Mm-hmm. That's it's really cool to hear. Like I don't know, it's just resonating with so many people, and they're finding you because of that, and they're gonna continue to. Like that's only gonna grow. So that's
And
a
I've met
big
so
cool moment
many
too.
cool people
Yeah.
through the trilogy. Um, the like not only just Bookstagram people, but I've connected with other communities too. And one of my big proud moments is the fact that Demi's mom has a copy of The Stars in My Heart, and she has a copy of Still Have Me. She and Demi's sisters are actually in the dedication, because I've gotten to know them more over the last year because of my writing. So I think that is one very cool thing that has come out of this.
Absolutely. I don't know if you feel this way, but I often feel this way of like, obviously I'm not a writer, but like I'm a creator in certain ways. And it is something that you do, also solitary, and you're in your own spaces, you're doing it from home. And once you finally get to hear how like that connects with someone in a real world way, it's almost kind of like trippy. Like you're like, oh, I forget that like there are real people out there on the other side of this. And like that's what we're doing it for. It's cool. It's super cool. Let's see. So for Still Have Me, there's a lot of, as we've been talking about, solace and strength within yourself. How are you personally kind of working on your cultivating like self-love and resilience? And like once you go to like, as we discussed, a dark and emotional place, thank you, Storygraph. How do you kind of maybe get yourself out of that, or like recognize like, okay, close that chapter? Like, how do you know what I'm asking? I'm not wording this well. You know
I
words, Sydney.
yes. So I think so with poetry, I use it as therapy. I'm not big on traditional therapy. I've tried it many times, and I just don't click with it. So a lot of times I write in the middle of the night when I can't sleep, and I'm thinking about things that I've heard are going on with certain family members that I'm no longer in contact with, but they're talking about me or whatever. So I get mad. That's usually my go-to reaction. And I write whatever comes out. And then after probably like an hour or so of just like rapid fire writing, I'm like, okay, I need to put this away. Maybe I'll put on music. Maybe I'll just like yank one of my dogs up and give him a hug
Mhm.
and kind of forget about it.
Mhm. Well, that's good. I mean, there's a couple different like elements to that. Like you said, like you're a person who uses music a lot of ways, so it's cool that you have like those certain artists that you turn to, and you know that. But then you also have pets, which are extremely helpful. Okay, so we've obviously been talking a lot about poetry, and I still consider myself like very much that like newbie reader of poetry. I keep buying them, and then I have this problem with like sad things that are generally deemed sad, where like I get scared to read it because
Yeah.
I know that I can't read it and not be sad. It's the same thing as like I was saying with music. So I tend to avoid them a little bit on my shelves. But when I do read them, I'm always glad that I did. I'm wondering if you have any recommendations for poetry of someone who's just starting out, like myself, who's maybe a little bit more intimidated.
So I think
Exactly.
my I think that my best recommendation for people that want to get into poetry but are intimidated by it is to start with novels written in verse, because then you're still getting a story aspect, but it's broken down into poetry form. Exactly. Yes. So you can get used to the formatting of poetry through those, um, and then kind of move on from there. I was pleasantly surprised to really enjoy Megan Fox's.
I was wondering what you thought of this one. I listened to the audio.
I really liked it.
Mhm.
I was surprised that I liked it as much as I did. I can't remember what I rated it because I read it in November and I was very sick in November. But her collection is really good. I'm trying to.
There's a couple celebrity ones in particular that I was wondering if you had read. So there's Megan Fox. Julia Fox also has one now.
Have not read hers.
Okay. Lily Reinhart.
I have read hers.
That face says something right there. Okay. I don't have hers. Lana Del Rey.
I have not read hers.
Okay. I have hers. I haven't read it yet. And then you said you liked Halsey's as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah,
Okay.
I read it years ago, so I don't necessarily remember it, but I believe I think I rated it 4 stars. So
Okay. Speaking of, this is your last reminder. If you have audience Q&A, put them in the chat because this is your time.
yes.
Um,
Plug for my friend Larea Billups. She has a poetry collection, and I think that she is a brilliant poet.
can you spell the name so we can find it?
Yes, LARAYA and then Billups, Bill. Where is her name?
Okay, wait, let's start
There we
over.
go.
I'll type it in the chat as you say it. LA.
LARAYA.
Mhm.
Billups, BILLUPS.
Okay, got it. There we go.
So definitely recommend her. Kwame Alexander. He has a lot of like sports type poetry books that are really good. A lot of the poets that I really like, I really don't want to butcher their names.
You can send us a list later and we can put it on stories. If that works.
Yes. That
No
would
worries.
probably be better because I do not want to disrespect anyone. And Dean Alta, I think it's Ada.
We'll add it to the post. We'll like do a little list of your
Yes.
poetry recs and put them
Yes.
together.
He writes like The Black Flamingo, and he has very long novels in verse. But they're very good. They're like queer literature type of things. So definitely recommend him.
Good. Sounds like we're gonna have some good variety.
Yes, I will definitely go through my bookshelves and get a list together.
Speaking of, so ever since I've started interviewing authors, I've always asked for book recommendations at the end because I'm like, all right, a lot of them give, writing recommendation or like writing advice on their channels already. I don't want to be a writer. I just want to talk about books.
Right.
So I like to ask, I was like, we're both readers at the end of the day. Like, that's why we're here. We love books. So that's of course poetry recommendations, but I would love to get some sort of like non-poetry recommendations from you. And the like plot twist that I've added since I started this YouTube series last month is that out of either the one or several recommendations that you give me, I literally have to start reading it the next week. So no pressure. What are you forcing me to read?
No one who is very like close Bookstagram friends with me will be surprised by this, but Invisible Sun by Kim Johnson, that was my book of 2023, and I forced all my friends to read it. I forced my mom to read it when she started getting back into reading in February. So that is definitely my number one recommendation. Or Loveless by Alice Osman.
Perfect. Nailed it. Got it. Okay, well, we are at our hour mark, but I don't want to leave without asking you, of course, like what's next? Like what should we look forward to? Or, what do you want to share about for our final words here?
So, last year, towards the end of the last year, I started my current manuscript. It is called I Bet You Think About Me.
There it is.
And it follows two girls going to NYU. It is a queer new adult book, enemies to lovers situation. And yesterday I figured out how to make it an interconnected series. So there's that. I have two, all the titles are going to be like music related. So the second book will be Because I Liked a Boy by Sabrina Carpenter. And it wouldn't be me if I didn't have Demi in there somewhere. So the third book would be Ruin the Friendship, which is another Demi song. So that is what's next. I want to say that it will be out this year, but I don't know. I really want it to be out for Disability December. But I just keep hitting roadblocks, which sucks because I really do like the scene that I'm writing currently right now. It's a very like humiliating for the one character. I am writing it in a dual POV situation, so that's a first for me. But I really enjoy romances that have both points of views, so I figured that I would give this a try. The main characters' names are Talia and Elle, and they're both from Baltimore originally, going to NYU for school. So
I also did not see that. I see you going there. You're like, I'm really enjoying this part that I'm writing. It's super humiliating. And I was like, wait, what?
yes, my favorite part about writing Harlow's book was because it was so creative for me, and I'm kind of getting to do that with this manuscript as well, like doing things that maybe I would want to do to someone but never actually would follow through with it. So I'm having fun doing that with this.
That is why I play The Sims. So it checks out. It's like you feel powerful.
Yeah.
Friendly reminder to everyone no matter when you're watching this, if you're watching it live or you're watching it later, all of the links down below are where you can find Sydney, follow Sydney, and purchase all of Sydney's books. So great info. That's always going to be there. Click those links, follow Sydney, and read everything. Read everything that Sydney has written ever, and
just
continue.
read anything.
But I think that's it for today. Thank you for hanging out with us, Sydney, for being our Moody Author of the Month. We, as always, appreciate you for just getting us out of our comfort zones to try something new and to teach us something and to, like, let us into your world for a moment. So we just love you, and we're glad that you came.
I'm glad to be here, and I'm so glad that Bookstagram brought us together 3 years ago, I think. So.
What is time? All right. Well, thank you everyone in the chat for hanging out, and to everyone in the future days for watching this. We appreciate you very much, and we will catch you on the interwebs. Bye, friends.